The academy in Hellcrest was not like ordinary schools. It was a place where boys and girls were trained to become protectors of the kingdom. The halls were filled with students who carried wooden swords, wore training armor, and learned both books and battles. In one of those classes sat a boy named Ethan Cole. He was quiet, polite, and often kept to himself. He wore an unusual armor that shone faintly, even in dim light. No one had ever seen him take it off. Some thought it was strange, others thought it was just his way of being different. But deep inside, many students whispered that there was something unusual about him. Among his classmates were 10 girls who were known as the elite. They were smart, strong, and admired by others. Claire was the leader of the group. She had golden hair, sharp eyes, and a bold spirit. Along with her were Lily, a calm thinker, Megan, who was always curious, Sophia, who loved to prove herself, Hannah, quick and clever, and others who all carried pride in their hearts. Together, they were seen as the top of their class. They were respected, but also sometimes feared because of their daring actions. One day in combat class, while the teacher explained the lesson, the girls whispered to one another. Claire had a plan. She had grown tired of seeing Ethan sit quietly with his armor, never joining in open sparring, and never taking off even a single piece of his strange suit. The idea struck her that they should try to pull it off. To her, it was a game, a challenge, and a way to break his calm mask. The others at first were unsure, but when she smiled with her bold grin, they agreed. They wanted to see what was behind the armor. They wanted to know if the rumors were true. The moment came when the teacher asked the class to pair up for training. Claire gave a look to the other 9 girls and they nodded. Instead of sparring normally, they circled Ethan at first. Ethan thought they only wanted to train with him, but soon their smiles told him otherwise. Claire reached for the shoulder plate of his armor. Ethan stepped back, his eyes widening. Then Sophia grabbed at his wrist, Hannah at his side, Megan at his arm. In seconds, the girls were trying to pull away the shining plates that clung to him. The other students stopped their practice and turned to watch. The teacher frowned, but did not act at once, curious to see what would happen. The sound of metal scraping filled the room as the girls tugged and pulled. Sparks flew where their practice weapons scraped against the armor. The more they pulled, the more the armor seemed to resist. It was as if it was alive, refusing to be removed. At first the girls laughed. Claire smirked and said he was hiding behind his shell. But the laughter slowly faded when the armor began to glow faintly under their touch. A soft pulse of light ran across its surface. Ethan stood still, his face calm, but his eyes locked on them with a strange fire. The air around them grew warmer, the ground under their feet trembled just slightly, and the lights in the training hall flickered for a moment.
Oh.
The students watching gasped. Yes, some stepped back. Others leaned closer in awe. The teacher finally rose from his chair, concern written on his face. He called out to the girls to stop, but they were already frozen in surprise. The armor gave a low hum, and lines of light moved across it like flowing rivers of energy. Ethan's lips pressed together, did not raise his voice, but the silence that followed was heavy. Everyone in the hall felt that something important had been touched. The girls let go one by one, their eyes wide, their hands trembling. Claire, for the first time, had no bold smile. She looked at Ethan as if she had awakened something she did not understand. Ethan did not move. He simply lowered his gaze, but the glow of his armor did not fade. The hum continued, and the sense of power hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. The class stood in silence, and in that silence, every student knew that the boy they had thought of as quiet and ordinary was not what he seemed. The glow from Ethan's armor did not fade. The soft hum grew louder, and the air in the training hall felt heavy. The 10 girls stepped back, their eyes wide with fear and curiosity. They had tried to play a trick, but now it seemed as if they had opened something far beyond their control. The teacher shouted for order, but his voice was drowned out by the strange sound that rolled from the armor like a deep echo. Ethan stood in the center, calm yet tense. He did not raise his hands to fight back. His eyes, usually soft and quiet, now shone with a light that none of them had seen before. Claire looked at him, her confidence shaken, but her pride did not let her step away. She tried to laugh, but her voice broke. The others, Megan, Sophia, Hannah, Lily, and the rest, looked to her for direction, but she gave none. They all felt the same thing, a sense that Ethan was not ordinary at all. Suddenly, a bright line of light ran across the floor under Ethan's feet. It spread like water, making glowing shapes on the training ground. The walls shook, dust fell from the ceiling, and the students around the hall began to panic. Some moved back toward the doors, while others stood frozen. The teacher tried to reach Ethan, but the glow pushed him back as if an invisible wall had risen between them. The girls, still close to Ethan, felt the strange heat of the energy. It did not burn, but it pressed against their skin, making their hearts race. Megan whispered that they should stop, but it was too late. The armor seemed alive now, its surface shifting with streams of light. Ethan clenched his fists, trying to keep calm, but his breath came heavy. He spoke at last, his voice quiet but strong. He said that the armor was never meant to be touched. He said it was not only his protection, but also a seal holding something back. The girls listened in silence. None of them understood his words fully, but they felt the weight in them. Claire stepped forward, her hands trembling, and asked what he meant. Ethan looked at her with steady eyes, said that since he was a child, the armor had been placed on him by the order of the human queen herself. He said that he was not chosen to be like the rest of them. He was chosen to carry power that no student should ever carry. The girls gasped, their faces pale. The other students began to whisper in fear and awe. The teacher called for guards, but before they could enter, the doors burst open on their own. A squad of royal soldiers rushed in, their armor shining, their banners of the kingdom visible even in the bright glow. They did not point their weapons at Ethan. Instead, they bowed. The sight made the whole class freeze. The girls looked at each other in disbelief. Why would royal guards bow to a student? Ethan closed his eyes as if in pain. He told the girls that he never wanted this to happen here. He told them that they had forced something into the open that was meant to stay hidden until the right time. His voice was calm, but there was sadness in it. Claire lowered her head, guilt touching her heart. She had thought of it as a simple game, a way to prove herself. Now she realized it was much more. The soldiers surrounded Ethan, not to attack, but to shield him. The students in the hall whispered louder. Some of them were afraid, others excited. The glow from the armor grew softer, but did not disappear. The teacher stood speechless, unsure of what to do. Then, a hush fell over the room. From the doorway, a tall figure entered. The human queen herself stepped into the hall. She wore silver robes, her crown glimmering under the dim lights. Her presence was so strong that even the boldest students dropped to their knees. The guards bowed lower, and the teacher did the same. The girls stood frozen, not knowing whether to bow or to stand. The queen's eyes went straight to Ethan. She spoke slowly, her voice clear and powerful. She said that the seal had been broken before its time. She said that the kingdom was not yet ready for what was inside Ethan's armor. Claire finally found her voice and asked why Ethan was chosen. The queen's gaze moved to her, steady and piercing. She told them that Ethan was not only a student. He was the guardian chosen to protect the kingdom's greatest secret. And now, because of their actions, the path of fate had been changed. The training hall was silent after the queen spoke. No one dared to move. The glow from Ethan's armor had softened, but it was still there, a gentle pulse like a heartbeat. The girls stood in front of him, their faces pale. They had wanted to pull off his armor as a game, but now they saw they had unlocked something much greater. The queen's eyes moved from Ethan to the 10 girls. Her voice was calm but firm as she said their actions could not be undone. The path had been changed, and now they must face what had been set in motion. Ethan lowered his head. He looked as if he carried a weight no one else could understand. The queen walked closer, and the soldiers stepped aside. She told Ethan that the power inside him had been sealed for many years, hidden until the day it was needed. That day had not yet come, but now the world would know too soon. She told the girls that they had pulled open a door that should have stayed closed. Claire's hands shook as she tried to speak. She asked what would happen now. The queen's eyes softened for only a moment. She said that Ethan must now prove he was worthy of the power he carried. The class gasped. Prove himself? What did that mean? The queen explained that the academy had a trial ground, a place of tests that no ordinary student ever entered. It was a place where only the bravest were sent to face illusions, traps, and battles meant to test heart and spirit. She said Ethan would face the trial, and the 10 girls who had touched his armor would go with him. It was their doing that had broken the seal, and so it would be their duty to walk beside him. The girls looked at one another in shock. Megan whispered that it was impossible. Sophia said it was unfair. Hannah shook her head, afraid but unwilling to show it. Claire, though shaken, lifted her chin and said they would go. Her pride would not let her step back now. The Queen nodded, as if she expected no less. Ethan finally spoke again. His voice was steady, but quiet. He said he never wanted this power, but if the Queen commanded it, he would obey. He looked at the girls and said they should not be forced, but the Queen cut him off. She said fate had already chosen. None of them could escape it. That evening, the academy grounds were prepared. The trial doors opened for the first time in many years. The great gates stood tall, carved with old symbols, glowing faintly as if alive. Teachers, guards, and students gathered to watch. The trial was not a public show, but everyone felt history was being made, and they could not turn away. The 10 girls gathered beside Ethan. They wore their training armor, though it felt small compared to the weight of what they were about to face. Claire stood at the front, her pride still holding her firm, though fear hid in her heart. Lily tried to calm the others, whispering that they could face this together. Sophia held her weapon tight, as if ready for anything. Megan bit her lip, still unsure. Hannah's eyes darted everywhere, nervous but quick to hide it. The others stayed close, silent but alert. Ethan walked forward, his armor glowing softly in the night. The guards bowed as he passed, though he did not want the honor. The Queen herself watched from a high balcony. She raised her hand, and the trial gates opened with a deep sound that shook the ground. A cold wind blew from inside, carrying with it a sense of danger and mystery. The students watching whispered in awe. They wondered if Ethan would survive, or if the girls would regret what they had done. Some thought they would all fail. Others believed they might become legends. The truth was hidden behind the gates. Ethan turned to the girls. His eyes were calm, though heavy with the burden he carried. He told them they would face many dangers inside, but he would do all he could to keep them safe. He told them not to lose courage, because courage was the one thing the trial could not take away. The girls listened, some with fear, some with respect. For the first time, they saw not just a quiet boy, but someone who could lead. The Queen's voice carried over the hall. She declared that the trial would begin, and that the outcome would decide not only their futures, but the fate of the kingdom. The gates glowed brighter, the ground trembled, and the path opened before them. Ethan stepped through first, the 10 girls following close behind. The world of the trial swallowed them, and the gates closed with a thunderous sound, leaving the onlookers in silence. The true test had begun. The gates of the trial closed with a heavy sound, leaving Ethan and the 10 girls inside the dark space. At first they saw nothing, only shadows and mist that moved like living things. The ground under their feet was rough stone, and the air was cold.
Ow.
Then, glowing symbols lit up on the walls, and the mist began to clear. They stood in a vast hall that seemed endless, with arches that stretched high above them.
Ow.
The silence was broken only by the sound of their own steps. Claire tightened her grip on her weapon. She did not show her fear, but inside her heart raced. Sophia glanced around, her eyes sharp, trying to find any threat. Hannah stayed close to Lily, who whispered for them to stay calm. Megan looked to Ethan, her face pale, as if waiting for him to guide them. The others stood tense, every sense awake. Ethan walked ahead, the glow from his armor lighting the path. His steps were steady, and though he looked calm, he felt the weight of every breath. He knew the trial was not only a test of strength, but also of the heart. He had heard stories of illusions that could twist the mind, traps that could break the body, and choices that could change lives. The girls followed, their pride now replaced with unease. Suddenly the ground shook, and from the shadows came figures shaped like warriors. They were tall and covered in black steel, their eyes glowing red. They carried heavy blades that shone with strange fire. The girls froze, but Ethan raised his hand. He told them these were not real men, but illusions of the trial. Still, the pain from their strikes would be real, and only by standing together could they move forward. The warriors rushed forward with loud roars. Claire shouted for the girls to fight, and they charged. Blades clashed, sparks flew, and the sound of steel filled the air. Hannah moved quickly, dodging attacks and striking back. Sophia fought fiercely, her pride pushing her to prove her strength. Lily stayed calm, guiding the others to hold their ground. Megan's hands shook, but she found courage by standing near Ethan. Ethan stepped into the battle like a shield. The glow from his armor spread, blocking strikes that would have cut the girls down. His fists struck with power that shook the air, breaking the black steel figures into light that faded into mist. The girls, seeing his strength, fought harder. For the first time, they moved as a team, no longer only thinking of themselves. The fight lasted long, but slowly the dark warriors fell one by one. At last, the hall grew quiet again. The ground stopped shaking, and the mist pulled back. The girls stood panting, their bodies sore but alive. Claire looked at Ethan, her pride mixed now with respect. She had thought of him as weak and silent, but now she saw strength she could not deny. The path ahead lit with a glow, showing a new gate. Ethan told them the first trial was past, but harder tests waited. He warned them not to let pride or fear guide them. They nodded, each one feeling the truth of his words. As they walked, the hall changed. Walls melted into a forest of silver trees, their branches glowing in the dark. The air was heavy with whispers, as if voices hid in the leaves. The girls looked around in wonder and fear. Then, from the shadows, shapes appeared again. But these were not warriors. They were figures of people they knew, family and friends, speaking with familiar voices. Some called with love, others with anger, trying to pull them apart. Hannah cried out when she saw her brother's face, but Ethan stopped her. He told them not to trust what they saw. He said the forest showed illusions of the heart, meant to test their will. Megan shook, tears on her face, as she heard her mother's voice. Sophia shouted that she was not afraid, but her eyes told another story. Claire clenched her fists, struggling to hold on. Ethan stood firm, the glow of his armor pushing back the shadows. He told them to remember who they truly were and why they stood together. Slowly, the girls turned from the voices, though it tore at their hearts. One by one, the illusions faded, leaving only silence and the silver trees. The path ahead cleared once more, where the girls, shaken but stronger, gathered around Ethan. For the first time, they began to see him not as a mystery, but as their guide. Together, they walked deeper into the trial, knowing the hardest tests still waited. The silver forest faded, and the ground beneath Ethan and the 10 girls turned to stone once more. The light from the trees dimmed, and ahead of them stood a final gate. Its surface was carved with ancient symbols, glowing faintly with golden fire. The air was heavy, as if the whole place waited for them to step forward. None of the girls spoke at first. They knew this was the last test, and it would decide everything. Ethan looked at the gate, his armor glowing softly in the darkness. He told the girls that the hardest trial always came at the end. He said that what they would face was not only strength or illusions, but something deeper, something that would test who they truly were. Claire stepped closer, her pride now tempered with respect. She told him they would stand with him no matter what. The others nodded, their fear still there, but courage growing stronger. When they pushed open the gate, they entered a vast arena. The ceiling stretched into darkness, and the floor was marked with circles of light. At the center of the arena stood a giant figure made of stone and fire. Its eyes glowed like suns, and its voice rumbled like thunder. It called itself the Guardian of the Trial, and it said only those who proved their worth could leave. The girls stepped back in fear, but Ethan walked forward, his armor shining brighter than ever before. The Guardian raised its massive arm, and the ground shook as a wave of fire rushed forward. Ethan lifted his hands, and his armor burst with light, forming a shield that blocked the flames. He told the girls to fight with him, for the trial was meant for all of them. Claire shouted for them to stand together, and they did. The battle began, fierce and heavy. Sophia charged with her blade, striking at the stone legs of the Guardian. Sparks flew, but the giant did not fall. Hannah moved quick, darting in and out, drawing its strikes away from the others. Lily called out warnings, guiding their moves with calm words. Megan trembled, but found strength, striking with courage she never knew she had. The others followed, each girl fighting with all her will. Ethan stood at the center, his armor glowing like a star. Every strike from the Guardian that could have crushed them was met with his shield of light. His fists struck with force that cracked the stone, his power bursting with every blow. The girls saw him not only as a protector, but as someone who lifted them higher, someone who made them stronger. Their fear turned into fire, and their hearts burned with new courage. The battle raged long, but slowly the guardian weakened. Cracks spread across its body, light spilling from within. At last, Ethan gathered his strength, the glow of his armor blazing brighter than ever. With a roar that shook the hall, he struck the final blow. The guardian shattered into pieces of stone and fire that faded into the air, leaving only silence. The arena grew still. The ground glowed with golden light, and the gate behind them opened once more. A voice, calm and deep, filled the air, saying they had passed the trial. The girls fell to their knees, tired but alive, their eyes wide with wonder. Ethan stood tall, though his breath came heavy. The glow of his armor softened, no longer wild, but calm and steady. When they stepped back into the academy, the doors opened and the crowd outside gasped. The queen stood waiting, her eyes fixed on Ethan and the girls beside him. She walked forward, her voice strong as she declared that the trial had been passed. She said that Ethan was now proven as the guardian of the kingdom's future, and the 10 girls who once tried to break him were now bound to him as allies. The students and teachers bowed, their respect deep and true. The girls looked at Ethan, no longer with pride alone, but with trust. They had seen his strength, but more than that, they had seen his heart. Claire stepped forward and said he was no longer the quiet boy they once thought. He was their leader and they would follow him. The queen raised her hand, her voice carrying across the hall. She declared that a new legend had been born, one that would guide the kingdom in the days to come. The people cheered, their voices rising like thunder. Ethan lowered his head, humble even in the moment of victory. The girls stood beside him, their faces filled with pride and hope. Together, they had passed the trial, and together, they would face whatever future waited for them. The story of the boy with the hidden power and the 10 elite girls had only just begun.